So before we get started, to improve the experience of the session, I recommend you wearing headphones to ensure that you can hear me clearly and that you can get the best possible out of your experience. So thank you again for joining us today. And my name is David Ramirez, and I will be your host for this session. And I'm very excited to be here with you today, where I can share you a little bit of my knowledge and we can explore some of the features and sub functionalities together. So, as always, I will first start by doing a small introduction of what these are webinars about, and then we will deep dive into the full content of this presentation, right? So just a short slide deck. This is the SAP user community session. And as always, the goal of these webinars is to extend and expand the content from our educational program. So we want to deliver compelling content that can strengthen the knowledge that you probably already have in SAP and will hopefully at some point become a SAP BI guru, right? So what are the topics that we discuss in these webinars? It's mainly about, SAP functions, common design patterns, best practices, what is in the roadmap, what features are coming, and more, right? So our aim, we want to build a community where everyone can participate, ask questions, and share the knowledge and experience. Many of this content we build it based on questions that we get often asked. So please, it's your webinar. If you have any questions, if you have any suggestions, please feel free to type them in the chat box and we will be more than happy to take you through. This webinar series are mainly intended for existing customers, for partners, but anyone that wants to learn more about SAP, that wants to understand more about what we can do, we are all welcome to be here in this session. Today, this session should be something around 45 minutes to an hour, and we are holding these sessions on a monthly basis. So again, if you have any suggestion or if there is any specific topic that you would like us to bring in this session, please write them down in the comment section and we will be more than happy to include these topics in future sessions. Just to give you an overview of what we have been discussing previously, well, in the previous session, we have discussed about financial common design patterns, which are the main formulas and functions that we use to create financial statements. We made the same for the sales, also for the inventory. That was actually our last webinar where we showcased some KPIs, some ratios, how to build the covers ratio, inventory analysis, on-hand quantity reporting, and also valuation. So if you want to see those recordings, they should be in our web page, or if not, reach out to us and we will be more than happy to share you that content. But today's session, we are going to, and the name of this webinar is The Future is Built on the Past, AR forecasting. So again, this is going to be an educational session where I am going to take you on a journey of on reviewing first the foundations of AR reports. I always make the analogy that creating a report is like cooking. So we will be exploring what are the measures and the dimensions that we normally use to create the AR reporting. But where I will concentrate most of my attention, it's on some reports that I have created, where we are going to showcase, some different ways of how we can actually create AR forecasting. Um, there are some features and some functionalities that are not yet available for all our data model, but I want to show you what future functionalities are coming and how we can use them to leverage our reporting on AI. I think it's quite interesting. So this session will be a bit more different than the previous ones. Normally in the previous sessions, I showed you how to create the report from scratch. In this time, I think the reports that I have here, they are quite dense. They are quite, they have much more, they're much more complex. So I will do this much more as a show and tell. So I will show you, how I build the reports, and I will be concentrating my attention on very particular functions and formulas that I used for these reports, because actually many of those are quite repetitive, right? So we'll be just highlighting that. If you want to see that in much more detail, please feel free to reach out to us and to contact us, and we can have a one-to-one session where we can actually deep dive more into these concepts, right? So now I will jump and I will show the solution. So can you please confirm, Sinasamba, if you can now see Zap and you no longer see my presentation?
Yes, I can see that now.
Okay, super, amazing.
Now,
now the presentation again. Thank you.
Now you're back on the right screen. Thank you.
Perfect. So I have three different ways. These are three different reports that I create for forecasting. Please bear in mind that there are much more, and potentially in a real case scenario, we might have even more formulas or more things that we need to consider to have a much more accurate forecasting. At the end of the day, oops, I don't know what happened. At the end of the day, every forecast is different. Every business has their own way of running the business. So this can just change depending on the business that we have. So I will start maybe by introducing this one, which is the days sales outstanding method. Right, so I'm going to expand the screen so we can have a closer look at this content. And I will actually try to zoom in. Let's see if it actually, we can get a closer look. Perfect, right? And the daily sales outstanding, it's actually a calculation that we have out of the box in our data models, right? But funny enough, I think I've seen that it's barely used. And when I was making the research, when I was understanding, okay, what kind of things we can get from this KPI, I actually discovered that it's a quite a very powerful KPI that will help us with this forecasting, right? So, so what is this? The daily sales outstanding is a ratio that tells us how many days on average it takes a business to collect a payment after we have made the sales, right? So I will first start by explaining a little bit of what is this measure and how we can actually use it. So for me, it took me at the beginning a little bit of time to understand what this measure is, but I think at the end it's a quite simplistic measure. So if we want to know how quickly, on average, our customers are paying us back, this is the metric that we should be looking like, right? So it's like a timer, it's like a stopwatch that tells us how long it takes on average to get paid after we have made the sales. So if we think about this metric, and actually I'm showcasing the daily sales outstanding in this chart that I have in this. If the daily sales outstanding, the DSO, is low, this means that our customers are paying us quickly. If this number is high, this means that that it takes them longer to pay us, right? So to create this calculation, basically we need certain ingredients to create this formula, right? So what we need is first the total receivables. So this is the total amount of money that our customers owe us at a given point on time. Then we also need to know what are the credit sales, right? What are we selling? So these are the total sales that we made on credit over a certain period of time, right? And then finally, what we require is the days, which these are the days in the period, the days of the number of days that we have on a specific month, right? So basically, this is a formula of how we calculate the daily sales outstanding. So we have the total receivables, then we divide this by the total credit sales, and then we multiply this by the total days in period. I think the way how this formula is always presented, it's quite a bit, sometimes a bit complex to get it, but think about this. Think about what is my average credit sales that I have, and then once I have what is my daily sales, I want to know, this is like the inventory that I have of account receivables. I want to know how many days of sales I have in my accounts receivables, right? So that is what my daily sales outstanding is giving us, right? So now you might see that in our out-of-the-box solution, we have a report that is showcasing actually this. It's showcasing what are the days, what is the correct amount of sales, what is the total account receivable balance, and what are my daily sales outstanding. Now, let's jump into the forecast, where this actually comes from. So to create a forecast, what normally people do is that we need to calculate, okay, what is my average, daily sales outstanding. So this might vary from industry to industry. For the purpose of this exercise, what I made is that I calculated the average daily sales outstanding for the past periods. So just to give you a bit of a perspective, in this report, we are actually right now sitting on the month of December, right? So everything after December, it's a forecast. So you will see that actually here I have the days of the month, but my credit amount, my total AR amount, and my daily sales outstanding that I have in this table is everything before December, right? So, but then I have my expected sales. Now, these expected sales, and I will be talking about different ways of creating this forecasting later on, but this is just a forecast that I have, right? It can be based on some budget that I have, or it can be based on some statistical functions, or based on future payments that I might have. I will be talking about that in a bit, but for now, this is my expected sales. Great sales, obviously. This is what I expect to get in the next future months. So January, February, March, and April are future months. And what I have here, I calculated the average daily sales outstanding from my previous periods. So it is 86, right? So in order to forecast, to create a forecast of what are going to be my projected account receivable balance, what I need to do is I need to divide the average daily sales outstanding by the number of days in the period, and then multiply that by my projected sales. So this is going to basically tell us what is my expected forecast. This is a very commonly used method that is used to forecast this. On my previous webinar, I was explaining the inventory and the months of inventory. Actually, the logic is exactly the same. Think about my total AR balance as my inventory. Think about this as my sales. This will be my average daily sales. And then based on this, I want to know what are my days that I have. In this case, it's not of inventory, but what are my days that I have of sales in accounts receivable. And based on that, we forecast to see what are my expected sales, my expected account receivable. So this is a commonly used method. This is based on formulas. The second method that I have here. So what I wanted to highlight is that we can create forecasting based, and the name of this webinar is "The Future is Built on the Past," based on previous KPIs, based on previous metrics. We can use commonly used methods to create forecast, right? Now, the second one, and this is where I want things start getting more interesting. This is another method, which is the aging analysis forecasting, right? And Actually, I like this analysis quite a lot because it's an analysis that allows us to understand what is the story behind our receivables, right? So it's like a magnifying glass that allow us to peek into how long invoices have been waiting to be paid. And I'm sure that we have already seen this analysis where we are breaking down the receivables by age, normally on intervals of 30, 60, or 90 days. So this category provides us a clear picture of how the invoices are being unpaid. Now, what is different on this analysis and something that customers, partners have asked a lot is, hey, the out of the box reports that we provide are just providing those with a snapshot, right, of this aging on a 30, 60, 90 days by customer, but we only have those balances. So what we are incorporating, and this is a feature that will be coming soon, is that we will be able to do forecasting of this aging, sorry, this analysis, but over time. So we can see how this aging was at a certain period of time, right? So this method is particularly useful for many scenarios because it allows us to understand, when the cash is likely to come in. It helps us for our credit policy evaluation, right, to assess if the credit terms that we are using are effective, analyzing risk analysis, and also it's quite useful for strategic decision making, right? So let's dive into this report. As I mentioned, this is a feature that we are currently working on. It's not available right now in all our data models, but I want to give you a perspective of its potential, what is coming, and what kind of reports we can generate from it, right? So I want to analyze the first section. So in the first section, please concentrate your attention on what I have here on the top of the chart where I am hovering my mouse. So here we are displaying my account receivable over the last 6 months period, right? So these are my last 6 month period. And then we are breaking down these measures by the different aging categories. Important here to note that for this exercise, as well as the previous one, my current month is December. So everything that is before December, this is the past. So I am actually showcasing how was my distribution of my receivables on the past. So please take a moment to observe this chart, and we are not only seeing, for example, an increase on my receivables, see how these are increasing over time, but I can also see an increase of my aged receivables, especially the ones that are more than 121, right? So it can easily tell me, okay, what is happening? I can see that I have some collecting issues here. So we can identify some patterns, some changes into these categories over the months. So this is the first part of the webinar, right? The future is built on the past. Here, we are analyzing the past, what has been happening in the past, right? Then, the second section of the analysis, all right, in here I have this in terms of amounts. But to create this forecast, what I want to know what is the average distribution, right, of these receivables. So in the second set of reports, I am showcasing the same information, but now I am showcasing this in a percentage. So you can even notice that I changed the chart. And now I can see, okay, yeah, they are increasing, but I want to see now in terms of proportions, how this distribution is working. So again, it allows us to understand the distribution of the receivables over time, and we can identify whether a specific bucket is increasing or decreasing. I can see, and here, apologize that I didn't have consistency between the colors, but I can see how, for example, my a big bucket of 121 days, it becomes, here it seemed like it started increasing, improving my collection effectiveness, and here it got worse, right? So now, depending on the analysis, many companies, and this will depend on the type of business that you are working, depending on your industry. But I want to get the average, right? Potentially, I don't want to get this calculation, this based on the last period. Many times we have seasonality patterns, or many times we want to take the average of the last 3 periods. So depending what I made here on this go chart, we have many statistical forecast methods. I'm going to talk about them in a moment. But for this exercise, I calculated the average of this distribution for the last 3 months. Let's say that I see that here happened I made some strategies, some changes. So this is what I want to use to make my future forecast, right? So I'm using this distribution across different categories, we will forecast my sales. So I have, for example, my hypothetical projected sales, which is what I am showcasing in the last chart. These are my expected receivables that I have. And based on this, I am just multiplying these expected receivables by these proportions that I have here, by these portions of the buckets, and I am forecasting how my aging buckets would look like in the next 3 months, right? So I made all of this journey. I tried to, obviously, I don't need to build all of the reports to get this, but I wanted to visually take you through the journey of making this forecast, right? So basically what I made based on the history, AR, aging, I got what is my average bucket distribution. And then using that average bucket distribution, I calculated how my expected aging would look like in the future, given unexpected receivables that we have here, right? So all of this, as you can see here, we are January, February, March. All of this is forecast, and all of this forecast is based on the past, on the information that we have previously. So this is another way of creating report. Again, this is a commonly used method that is used in accounting. And the last method, which is potentially less of oops, this is not the one. Yeah, this is the one. And the last method that I want to show you today is statistical analysis, right? And I want to highlight here that comes with many functions and many functionalities that many times we don't use, but they are actually quite powerful to get statistical analysis and to create forecast, right? And many times we underestimate these features. So I'm going to start by explaining what this chart has. And actually, we can use this function and these features in conjunction with all the concepts that I have shown you before, like avail sales outstanding or the aging AR buckets forecasting for the future to build much more powerful analysis, right? In this case, this is very simple. And the report that I have here is mainly focused on a cash flow. So we already analyzed, what is my average the first analysis that I showed you, which was the daily sales outstanding, we saw what is my AR in the future. The second analysis that I made, okay, from that AR in the future, I want to see how the distribution would look like. And this one is concentrated in what is the cash, what is the amount of money that I'm going to receive. So as always, as I mentioned in this database, it's until December 2022. So all of this is what has happened in the past, right? So this is my paid amount. From this paid amount, this is past January. Oops, here my mistake. I have January 2 times. January, February, and March. This is the future, right? So you will see here, this is my maximum that I have here. This is my minimum, and this is my average, right? This is my average payments. So you can use them to create certain calculations. SAP comes with already interesting features. For example, this is a linear regression. This is based on my previous periods. So this statistical analysis allows us to understand, what is the trend, if it's an increasing trend, if it's decreasing. Always very important. Let's do this taking into consideration the past, because if I take into consideration all the payment amount of the whole period, then the trend will go downwards and it won't be accurate. And I will show you very quick how we will explore this analysis to show you how I created these functions. Right. Then we have more statistical functions, like simple moving average. We have exponential moving average. This is a weighted moving average. And you can see how these metrics are actually forecasting the next 3 periods. Actually, these metrics that we have here, and I'm not going to deep dive right now into the statistical analysis and into the breakdown on these features. I just want to show you that these features already come out of the box, but these are based on, we are waiting and we are taking into consideration how many periods we are going to use for this forecast. So here you will see that I have you can have some like spinning box. This is controlling actually the number of periods that my simple moving average is using to calculate the forecast. So I can say, hey, I don't want you to calculate this based on the last 3 periods. I want to calculate this based on the last 12 periods. And based on this, you can potentially get a much more accurate analysis. So the same thing happens with the weight moving average. You will see that if I move this to 12, so I think the max number that I wrote, it was 10. But you can see how these numbers are moving. Now, also, we can have analysis that are based on seasonality. So what and this is actually a seasonality plus growth. So what I am doing here, I'm saying, hey, this is calculating the previous period of the same year. So this is actually January of the previous year, plus a specific increase. I can say this is how it was, 12 months ago. This is what was my forecast, but I want to say, hey, I want you to increase into this year. Our goal is to grow 10%, right? 10.1%. So this is how my forecast would look like. And something that doesn't look here, I don't know why I selected the white color. This is my bad. I apologize for that. But here you can have, a further analysis, like a pessimistic analysis, optimistic analysis. So you can see my intention here. The reason why it was white, I wanted to showcase this as an area to show, what are the limits of my forecasting, right? So just keep in mind that there are many statistical functions. There are much more, like the exponential moving average, which is not here. We can use our own functions to use the max, the minimum, the average, and other certain parameters to kind of forecast the future. I've seen this quite a lot, for example, when it comes to currency reports, where we want to say, hey, I want to show this but in USD, right? And I want to multiply how my currency would look like in the previous periods. So, we can use all of these spin box and all of these slides to make much more accurate reports. And potentially the last one that I want to show you as a concept, I have here in my favorite folders, this one, which is a 13-week cash flow forecast. This is potentially going even beyond this analysis because this is incorporating now AR, AP, so this is much more dense now in concept. But basically what I have here, I have what are my expected receivables over time, but then also I am doing the same, but now for the payments. So guess what? When I compare the receivables against the payments, now I can get an idea of what are going to be my inflows and outflows. But then I need to combine that information with my opening balances. This is my bank opening balances, which I can, break down this by bank or by a specific currency. In this case, I'm just breaking down this by currency, so you can potentially see what is my forecast in terms of a bank balance at a certain period of time. Something that I haven't mentioned, but it's very relevant and it's a very important feature that we have in our solution, remember, is that we can set up business alerts. So it's having like Zap monitoring the business for us, and it can tell us, in this case, for example, I know that my minimum bank balance will fall in the week 33, which will be 48K. And let's say that I don't want to have a bank balance that's below 50K because that's unhealthy. I don't want to have that. So what the system will do, it will send us a notification email telling us every time a measure is out of the boundaries, right? So it's about how we can be proactive in our reporting and how we can actually analyze these metrics before it's too late. So this is the last report that I wanted to show you. So in the next couple of minutes, in the next 10 to 15 minutes, what I want to show you is like, what are the thoughts? What is the mindset behind these reports? I mean, what is the common structure that we will find when we are building AR reports? So again, I won't deep dive into all of this. I want to just show you some functions, some concepts, because it might be a bit dense, all of these reports. So I'm going to change into the designer mode, so you can see actually how these reports were actually built. Right, so what I'm going to do, I'm going to go to my area. Let's collapse everything. Let's collapse my public folder and let's open these reports. I will start by the statistical forecasting dashboard that I have here. And what I'm going to do, I'm going to actually, even I need to correct this, and I'm actually going to do that on the fly. So I'm going to open this statistical forecast report so we can see what we have here, right? So the first thing that I want to show you, it's how our account receivable actually looks like. What is my dimension tree? So remember that I always make the analogy that creating a report is like cooking. If I want to create a report, if I want to, it's like creating a dish. And I need to have those right ingredients, right? And these ingredients for building the report are the measures and are the dimensions, which is what I'm going to show you now. But many times these ingredients do not come in the shape and format that we require, right? So if we want to have a hamburger and we want the bread, well, the bread doesn't come like that in nature, right? We need to transform the wheat and have some certain processes where we transform this in the shape that we require to prepare our dish. So that's what we do here. We can extract information from multiple data sources for this analysis. Many of these data come from directly from our ERP, but some others, some parameters can come from other systems or from budgets that might be on an Excel file, right? So in this, in the data model, that's what we shape these ingredients in the shape format that we require. And that's what we are actually looking here. So the typical, and this is my bad, I just, while I was creating the webinar, I just duplicated these components, but the typical components that you will find are these, right? We will find the transaction amount, which is actually the, or the invoice amount, which is what are my sales that are happening. These are my credit sales that are coming. The reconciliation amount will be the payments that I am receiving. And, you know, we have had my invoice minus my reconciliation. That will be my receivable amount, which are the balances. If you haven't seen the previous webinar where I talked about inventory patterns, I talked about this is a movement table, right? So what this actually have is the movement over time. So if I grab and drop this metric here, you will see that I have here movements, right? So you will find here some KPIs. For example, these are opening balances, this is movements, and here I will find this opening balance, this closing balance, and then basically these two that I have here are the same amount, both closing and opening, and this here I am breaking down the measures by what is current and what is due, right? And here you will find certain metrics that the ones that I showed you for the report, like the daily sales outstanding. Here there are more KPIs and ratios, the collection effectiveness index, average daily sales outstanding. I won't go too deep into those ones, but I just want to show you what are the ingredients that we have here and my aging buckets to create my aging analysis. So these are the ingredients. Typically, when we break down the data, we break the data by customer, by company, by due date, and by posting date and by payment date. Forget about all of these things that we have here. In a future version, we are going to hide them because they are not relevant for this analysis. They are just there for some calculations and some functions that we have built. So it's a quite simple thing. And for this report that I have here, I have the paid amount, which was, I grabbed it from here, from my amount, and then I am calculating the maximum, the minimum, and the average. So I want to quickly show you how these functions are built. So I'm going to hide the chart so we can, because I will start making it very busy. So I want to hide the chart, and I want to show you, because this is a common question that I get asked very often. How can I calculate what is the average, for example, or the minimum or the maximum of all of these paid amount that I have here? So to do that, we need to right click into the functions. We go into the value folder, and then you will see that from here we have functions like average. We have, functions like if I go to the statistics, if I go to the descriptive, you will find maximum, median, standard deviation, range, and variance, right? So from here, let's get now the median. I already have the maximum, the minimum, and the average. So let's get the median. I'm going to click on this one. And then a common mistake that we have here is that it's asking us two things. You want me to calculate the median, but of what? What is the context? What is the range of time that I want, right? So in this case, I need to specify that. If I just drag and drop here the payment amount, this is we are going to calculate the median. What? Well, of the paid amount, right? If I just drag and drop this, look what's going to happen. But it will give us an error. But here in the set is where we want, that's where we give that context. It's the average of what? Is the maximum of what? Well, I want to get the average of all these periods that I have here. So I'm going to grab these periods too, that are all of those periods. I will show you now in a moment, and potentially I should have shown this before, what these periods do and these periods from are. But I'm going to drag this and drop it here, and that is going to calculate, my median. So if I now place it here, you will see that this is showcasing my median. So I have the median, maximum, minimum, average. So all of these functions are the same. I won't show them all. I just want to show you what is the mindset behind building that report. Now, you can use conditionals to showcase this in the future. Let's say that you don't want to show this in the past, you just want to show this in the future. You can always use advanced conditionals. For example, here I just created, hey, if the focus is equal to 1, this is just a flag. This is focus doesn't exist. This is something that I just created in the data model. I just wanted to see what was defined, what is my context of time, if this is the current month. So basically, you can create all of these conditionals in the data model. So it's quite actually complex. The same logic goes for the linear regression. You can see the linear regression is quite simple. We just need to drag and drop the measure that we want to actually showcase. And then I want to show you how the moving average actually works. But before I jump into that, see, please note that here I have January. And this is a context slices. So I have been mentioning this a lot throughout my webinars, but I want to show you that basically the time context allows us to have these very dynamic sets here, where I have here two functions. I have the periods to and the periods from, right? So these are functions that you can find in the time folder, in the utility folder, and then you have the periods from and the periods to. So the first one, what if I open this formula, I drag here the member, which is the context period, right? So the context period, you can find them, you can literally type here top context period. So this is going to give us basically the context that we have selected here in my slicer. So what this is basically telling me is from the context period, I'm going to give you the 6 periods that are the previous periods, right? So this is showcasing all of this is my periods to formula. So from the context period, I'm showing 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Oops, and potentially don't have data before. So it should be that's the reason why I'm not showcasing more data. So, and then we have the periods from. So what I have here is from the context period, I'm showcasing the next 3 periods, which is January, February, and March. I know why. Because here my context period is January. So what I need to, this is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, right? So that's the reason all my previous analysis were December. So this is the reason why this is showcasing like this. So now we can get this closer view. For the moving average, weighted moving average, we can find those calculations in the time folder. We will have the moving average. And from here, I'm just going to add a simple moving average. And here you can say, okay, I want the moving average of what? Okay, of my formula, right? How many periods I want. And here is where you can literally write like 5, and that's it. It's a quite simple formula. Or if you want to use this spinning box, you can remove this, and we can use here a function which is called parameterization, number input, and here I can say moving average 2, right? And I can define what are the parameters. Hey, my minimum is 0, my maximum is 12, and the value that will be for the default will be 1, let's say. And then I can I apply this, and here I have my simple moving average, and here I have my control box that will allow us to tell, if I type 56, it will tell me no, it's 12, the max that you find, right? So that's how I can use those parameters. And when it comes to the last one, which is the seasonality plus growth, this is an interesting function. Actually, what I'm doing here, don't pay attention to all of this section. I'm just going to actually delete it so we don't get confused. I just want to show you what is the important thing of this. So what I made is first, I drag and drop the paid amount, right? So this is the reference to the paid amount. Oops. Yes. And then what I made is a lag and advance. So what I want to do, this is, I want to calculate, since it's seasonality, I want to see the sales, but from the last 12 months, right? So we can use then the context period that I showed you before. That's giving me the context, that's filtering this measure. Is okay, it's a paid amount, but not the one that I'm showcasing in this month. I want you to apply a lag and advance, right? So I can say, hey, I want you to lag this. So I will click on member, and then I have this lag and advance function, and I can say, hey, I want to lag this by 12 specific months. So then you are pushing these 12 months in the past, right? And then I'm multiplying this by a growth, which is 1 plus the growth that I have here. I am just using this in terms of hundreds. So that's the reason why I divided this by 100, so we can get this function. So let's say that that's normally something that we use in sales, right? I want to, my target for this month will be my previous sales plus an increase of a 10%, and that's how my seasonality will grow. So this is basically just pure math, and that's what we use to create these reports. So it's quite simple, and these are quite the foundations of this report. For the other reports, I won't go too deep into detail. But the logic is similar. If I open this forecast reports, actually yeah, it's fine. You will see that all of these ingredients, days in periods, credit sales, total year balance, and daily sales outstanding already comes from our out-of-the-box reports. It's just about dragging and dropping. I have here the periods to and the periods from, which I already showed you how to create that. And then using the average calculation that I showed you, I am calculating the average of the previous months, same logic that I showed you before, and then creating the expected sales. These are my expected sales. This can come from a previous forecast using a different forecast method from a budget. And then here is just a calculation, right? So very, very, very simple how to do this report. And finally, the last one, which is the aging forecast. Here there are many calculations that we have, and I will just showcase this one and also potentially this one. I need to let me open them with the filters applied so we can get the same context. What I build here, remember that in the measures, I will have these components, which are my aging receivables. So literally I just drag and drop them here, right? And that's what we do. We just showcase this using my periods. And that's what we have here. Very simple. There's no complex transformations here. And then in the aging distribution, it's just about, getting the average. So if it's the current, I'm just multiplying what is current divided by my total receivables. And that's how I'm getting those proportions. So quite straightforward the analysis. And for the forecasting that we have here, we are using the same approach that I showed you in the first report, where I am using average and those metrics to calculate, from this period that I have here, I want to see what is my average distribution that we have here. And then from there, what is my expected scenarios of my aging over time. So this is what I prepared for today's session. I just wanted to give you much more of an overview of what are our capacities, what are the capabilities of the solution, what kind of things we can actually use to create these forecasting reports. Right now, I concentrated my attention only on accounts receivable because I think it's quite relevant to know how our cash look like in the next weeks. But bear in mind that this is applicable for other scenarios. I can use the same principles and the same logic for inventory forecasting, for procurement, for even for finance, for expenses, right? To see what is going to be the distribution of my expenses over time. And note that this is just integrating information from my data source, in this case, my ERP. The example that I showed you about the AR forecasting that I have here, the 13-week cash flow forecast, this is incorporating information from additional data sources. You will see here, and this is something that one of our partners mentioned to us, like, hey, what if I have a customer from the manufacturing industry and they want to invest in certain assets, and those assets are part of a master plan, right? Those transactions are not yet posted in their ERP because they want to buy it, but they want to first look how their bank balance would look like. So can you incorporate transactions or assumptions that are outside the ERP? And the answer is yes. Remember that we can incorporate data from additional data sources that can be values in the market, or that can be, an Excel file. That's our master plan. Those are certain assumptions that we have, certain payments that we are, or certain inflow money that we are going to receive that we don't know how that actually that we haven't yet posted in the ERP. So the whole idea is how you can use all of these features to create these powerful reports. So thank you very much for joining this webinar. If you have any questions, please feel free to type them in our chat box. If you have any, is there if there is any specific topic that you would like to see in the future as well, write them down in the chat box or reach out to us directly, and we can have a discussion and we can potentially include those topics for future webinars, right? So I will give just a couple of minutes to see if there are any questions. And while that comes, I will start wrapping everything up. So all of these functionalities that I showed you will be quite useful, to monitor for my cash flow management, for understanding my credit policy evaluations, to assessing risks, and to, based on these, make certain strategies that can help me have a better collection effectiveness overall. So I will give 1 or 2 minutes for questions, and if there are not any questions, I will end the session.
Thank you very much, David, for that impeccable presentation you just delivered. We do have a question here. And the user is asking, saying, did I hear you say it comes out of the box? And if so, are these dashboards currently deployed or can be gotten and added?
Yeah, no. These reports do not come out of the box. These are use cases that I built for this particular webinar. Some of these ingredients, some of these components that we require to build these reports are already in our out-of-the-box data model. So potentially things like the sales outstanding forecasting, that's something that we will be able to do with our current data model. Also, all this statistical forecasting. When it comes to the aging, all our current solutions have only this on a specific period of time, which is the balance as of now, right? This feature that we have here, which we are showcasing this on, and we can show this over time. This is new functionality that it's coming, so that's not yet available. If you are interested in having a look at something like this, reach out to us and we can have a conversation and we can see what we require to provide you with this. So no, this is not out of the box. The out of the box reports that we provide for account receivable look like this. Let me show you. Apologize here because everything is aged and this doesn't look nice. I will be soon working. I was actually working on trying to improve the quality of the data, but it's quite hard to get it right. This is my out of the box report, right? Where I'm showcasing what is my opening balances, what is overdue, what are my average days to pay, current balances, how is that breakdown of my balances, what is current, collection effectiveness index, days sales outstanding, which I showed you, best DSO, and the average days delinquent, and showcasing this over time. And we have always the capacity to break down this, to drill down, to expand more into detail, to analyze, okay, now by customer, I'm analyzing my aging buckets, and if I double click on a figure, I can get even to the lowest level of detail, which are the invoices, right? So this is what comes out of the box. But yeah, we can use many of these ingredients to build some of the reports that I showed you today.
Thank you so much. I hope your question is answered to Gazi. I hope I'm pronouncing them correctly. And if there's anyone else with more questions, please do pop them on our Q&A session.
Amazing. Perfect. Well, thank you again for joining us today. Hopefully the content that I showed you today was relevant to you. Thanks for making the time to be with us today. And yes, looking forward to see you in the next webinars. So have a wonderful day and see you soon.
Thanks, everyone.
Perfect. Okay. Thanks, everyone.